Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right, I'll read. Oh, yeah, yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will start. Before I formally go through the items on the agenda, can I just say that over to our left is a water machine. Please do feel free to get yourself a glass of water. It is very hot today. And don't feel you have to wait in between items. Just do make yourself feel better if you need to get a drink. The first item then is to explain the evacuation procedure, because actually we do have people who haven't, to my knowledge, been in this room before. If there is a fire win, if the fire alarm sounds, it won't be a test, it will be a real one. If you leave by the entrance you came in, down the stairs, and we all congregate opposite the Yorkshire Bank. That is the meeting place. If you need any assistance, there are officers of the council who are more than happy to offer assistance. Can I advise that it would be really helpful if you have a mobile phone with you, if you could turn it to silent or turn it off, please. And can I also advise that all or part of this meeting will be recorded for future broadcasts. Okay. Apologies for absence. We've received apologies from Councillor Shepherd. Declarations of interest. There are those printed on our agenda today. Are there any in addition to that? No? Okay. That brings us on then to item 4, to confirm the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 13th of June. Is anyone prepared to move that? Is that agreed? Yep. Thank you. Public consultation. I've got a number of people that have indicated they wish to speak. I'm going to read through the list. If you wanted to speak and your name isn't read out, you approach Kelly during the meeting, and then if we haven't got to that item, then we will endeavour to hear your points of view. So on item 6, I have Councillor Kyle Evans, Carl Walker, Councillor Bagwat Fundia, Carl Mayer, Anthony Case, Councillor Keith Condicourt, Lubbs, Lubbs, wherever you are you happy to be called Lubbs?
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Didn't want to...
Makes life easier.
Thank you very much, Lubbs. Councillor Richard Smith, Corinne Vernon, Councillor Damon Brown, Councillor Seb Graham, Councillor Hayden Walmsley, Michelle Kondaka, Councillor Claire Golby, Councillor Chris Wilson and Councillor Rob Trowbridge. On item 7, I've got Councillor Keith Condicourt and Councillor Damon Brown. On item 9, Councillor Richard Smith. On item 10, Councillor Keith Kondaka and Councillor Chris Wilson. And on item 11, Councillor Keith Kondaka. Okay, so I think I'm going to go through the agenda in the order it's written, because we have speakers on most of the items on the agenda. So the first item, page 14, is the Borough Plan consultation on main modifications. Neil, can I hand over to you to introduce the item?
Do people speak first?
We normally introduce the item first.
Right, okay. The purpose of this report is to consider making main modifications to the Borough Plan as recommended by the local plan examination inspector to ensure that the Borough Plan is sound in accordance with the Town and Country Planning, Local Planning Regulations 2012, the brackets regulations, and agree the period for public consultation on the main modifications. So that's basically what the purpose of the report is. Now, do I listen to?
Okay. The first speaker then is Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, after the last hearings in front of the inspector, I actually thought you would go back and make some pretty major changes to HSG4. Part of me actually believed you might stop it altogether. So that is why I'm absolutely gobsmacked that you actually want to continue with this farce of a project with no major changes to HSG4 and to seek to put these modifications forward to a public consultation. The new transport access that you are proposing onto HSG4 from Newtown Road is, in my opinion, extremely unsafe for my constituents on the Bedworth Woodlands and will be terrible for the environment. Page 58 of the ECUS Heritage Assessment states very clearly that this is well-preserved ridge and furrow, and the same report also states that this must be retained. After the last hearings, the government inspector came back and said in his notes, and I quote, "I will expect to see the proposed main modifications address this matter in terms of the rewrite of paragraphs 6.64 and 6.65 of the plan." So, okay, you've rewritten paragraph 6.64 and 6.65. So let's have a look at what you've put in the rewrite. With regards to the ridge and furrow, you say it has medium heritage significance, and then you say, with regards to the ridge and furrow, it's regrettable to build all over it. This is actually quite embarrassing. The inspector has said he expects you to rewrite the paragraphs to address the issues of building over the ridge and furrow, and all you've done is clarify that it has heritage significance, building over them is regrettable, and you still want to go ahead with the new access route. All you're doing is wasting the inspector's time by going through with this. In addition, I have significant concerns with the proposals on paragraph MM66 to have a vehicular access point from Jug Close. Those with any local basic knowledge of the town will know that it has to be one of the narrowest roads on the Bedworth Woodlands. A lot of people live on bungalows, so a lot of elderly people live on there. I really think this should be amended this evening in order to take Jug Close out of this report. It really shouldn't have been considered as an access point in the first place. I have a Fiat Panda, and even I struggle to get down there. The main thing that you're voting on tonight is whether or not to put this forward to a public consultation. What I want to ensure is that the consultation is open and transparent for our residents, in line with priority 4, aim 2 of the council's corporate plan. The council needs to learn the lessons of the past. The last consultation was an absolute shambles. People living opposite some of the major proposed developments didn't even know about the consultation. You failed to communicate with the people about this. What you're trying to do again is the bare legal minimum, and for our taxpayers that's simply not good enough. I want to see the council set up a consultation event at the Bedworth Woodlands. This is the largest proposed housing site in Bedworth, and my residents need to be consulted effectively. I also want to see the council advertise the consultation over social media, which is something that you failed to do last time.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Are there any points of clarification?
No.
No. No, thank you very much for your presence. The next speaker is Carl Walker. Mr. Walker? Can I just ask, is Mr. Walker in the room? Carl? Okay. Councillor Pandir?
Thank you, everybody. So I would like to speak on the school land development, HSG 6. Why the resident of Exall would like to remove school land development on green belt from the borough plan. School lane is a lane, not a road, to cope with the high traffic. There is already too much traffic and it is very difficult to cross the lane. Infrastructure and amenities in this area are not enough to cope the extra development. I have not heard anyone living around school lane is in favor of this development. There is a public right-of-way, electricity pylons and ponds in this site, and there are not enough schools and health centres. Residents of this area are already struggling. If we have extra 220 houses on the green belt, where they will send their children and where they will register for their health care facilities, and where the resident of Hawkesbury will send their children, as there is not any school in Hawkesbury village. I believe that as the smallest yet most populated borough in Warwickshire with a precious few areas of green belt, the borough plan should not aim to deliver dwellings from Coventry. We may have duty to cooperate, but we should not use our green belt to accommodate overspill from Coventry at the cost of a resident of Exall. School lane area provides an important green buffer between a residential area and the motorway, which is much valued by local residents. I am very concerned about the issue of air quality for the future residents. My division members who live in this area have informed me that vehicles regularly come to a standstill on this section at the peak times, meaning that exhaust fumes would be highly concentrated around the area of the proposed development. There will be approximately more 400 cars in the new site, which will cause more traffic and deteriorate the air quality. However, I am concerned that developer will naturally choose deliver sites first, which are likely to be green belt, because this will cost less to deliver as compared to brownfield site, as brownfield site will cost more to decontaminate. Our aim should be to use brownfield site first, that the developer will build houses and people will buy, but they won't know the problems until they start living, as this is happening in many sites already. Government has produced new legislation which requires a borough plan to be reviewed every 5 years. As a minimum, we should be open, transparent and democratic. So keeping in mind all these factors and the government white paper, I request the council to consult residents and give more time, as during the August holiday from 30th of July to 8th of September, most of the people will be away from their homes, and we need with more time, maybe end of September, even longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ponder. Are there any points of clarification? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Carl Mayer. Thank you.
You all right there? You all right? We started?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, sorry.
What a mess the officers have cobbled together in these modifications regarding HSG4, and the action group would ask the Cabinet not to rubber stamp them tonight for consultation. The Leader of the Council and the Portfolio Holder are fully aware of the emails I've sent them over the last few weeks when this new road scheme was put into the public domain. I sent Catherine Morton an email asking her if she would be backing it. Her reply, which I have also sent to the Leader and the Portfolio Holder, clearly stated that the officers would not be recommending it. This was obviously not true, as tonight is down in the modifications. I would like to know what and why Catherine Morton changed her mind. These modifications go against the Council's own policy base and is clearly shown in the ECAS report, which Nuneaton and Bedworth Council used as evidence to protect valuable ridge and furrow in the plan. We must not forget that this is the Council's and Warwickshire County Council's second attempt, given the inspector told them at the examination that the first attempt was a complete failure due to parts of the land for roads that were not even within the site boundary. The inspector in his notes on the 29th of May also poured scorn on the current traffic modifications before us tonight when he pointed out that it was totally against their own evidence regarding landscape and heritage ECAS report, which stated that the ridge and furrow should remain. And the inspector even went as far to say that that was his emphasis too. So why on earth are the officers sending it back to him in the modification? Surely the Cabinet members have asked this question, and I'd love to know what answer they have been given. Using this medieval ridge and furrow, which is probably the finest example in Bedworth, also seems an odd infrastructure choice, given that one of the major landowners told the examination inspector that his client would be going it alone and wouldn't be able for any major road schemes. This last-ditch attempt for success sets a very dangerous precedent in the Council's own policy, with no doubt giving developers carte blanche to attack every piece of valuable landscape in the borough. And believe me, watching their QCs in action at the examination, they will be rubbing their hands together with glee, sorting out case studies from Timbuktu. I asked the Cabinet tonight not to vote through to consultation because of timescales, but to put it to full Council for proper debate and questions. The question of time is mainly down to the Council's planning department being questioned on a massive scale by the inspector over issues arose in the examination. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly, and in the action group's view, HSG4 is not being done either fairly or properly. Following the examination process, I've picked up things that stick out. For instance, Catherine Morton signing a statement of common ground with the landowners of Hawkesbury for development for maybe 500 houses and other stuff. Hawkesbury, like many other sites in the plan, is within the green belt, but regards landscape and ecology, scores very low against the woodlands, as picked out by Terra Strategic, Hawkesbury's Legal Eagles, which I've also sent via to Council of Fruit.
Mr Mayor, can I thank you very much for your comments. Are there any points of clarification?
Not at the present moment in time, but Carl, as usual, if you've got a copy of that, can you post it to me?
Yeah.
Email it to me.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to take on 15 people's blood.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the emails you sent to us. Anthony Case. Hello, Mr Case.
Hello, resident of the used to be called Woodland Park, named the Limes. I've got 5 points I'd just like to make. The Woodland Road is very, very narrow. You can barely get a lorry down it. It has cars parked both sides. There's no double yellow lines. The residents have that as their only place to park. It's the main access to this proposed building site, housing estate. It is a cut through from the North Nuneaton to the 444. So during rush hour, from 7:30 till 8:45, people on my estate find it very, very difficult to get off. The road is chock-a-bat block up Woodland Road from Newtown Road, and they cut through from North Nuneaton to get onto the 444. Point number 3 I've just covered. They will not build affordable housing if they have got to fork out £35,000 for an island, which will never happen. The farmer who lives on the site is going to lose his livelihood and his residence. So are you going to find him somewhere to live? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any points of clarification? Thank you, Mr. Case.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Condon.
Thank you very much. This is
Sorry, can we restart the clock?
Sorry.
Councillor Condon.
Thank you. This has been going on 12 years now. It'll be 12 and a half years if it's adopted. It's cost £4 million. At no point have we listened to the noises from the public about the numbers being too high. This consultation, like every other consultation, is failing to talk about the numbers, which is a big elephant in the room. If we don't change the numbers, we will build on virtually everything we can. And the numbers are crazy. On Monday, I visited the Office of National Statistics with other campaigners and spoke to the head of population. And it is clear that they do not believe the numbers for Coventry, and in a year or two they will get changed. But it's a very slow process to change the numbers. Coventry City Councillors do not believe the numbers. No one, it seems, believes the numbers, yet we're railroading this through as if the 14,000 is correct. It clearly isn't. And what is happening in Coventry is they're building upwards. Students do not want to live on Bedworth Woodlands or Wellington. The students of Coventry want to live in high rises as close as possible to their universities, their bars and their railway stations. The growth is happening, but it's happening very, very different to the housing assessment, and is going to be more sustainable possibly because it's going to be more dense in Coventry. But no one's believing us. No one's talking about changing the numbers. And in this consultation and every other consultation, the numbers, which are double and triple counted, are just being taken as read. In the plans for HSG1, from the Wellington Trail to the Longshoot, every single field is now going to be built on. We're losing our landscape buffer. The last fields are going to remain. So this plan is basically a plan to build on absolutely everything. So there is no reason for us to actually take the plan on board. Yeah, we're losing everything. We're not being given a sausage. And now we're losing sports facilities as money is being gerrymandered into Bedworth. It is just appalling. And we need a review. This 6 weeks consultation is nowhere near long enough, and we should have a call in and a bit of time to think about what we're doing, rather than just railroading this appalling plan through. And we're leaving the EU, or maybe not leaving the EU, but we're trashing the economy and having lots of uncertainty. We're not in a period where Nuneaton and Bedworth is going to need and even able to build over 1,000 houses a year. The plan is going to fail. We're not going to do what it says in the plan. And a reality check now will save an awful lot of pain and an awful lot of loss, both in Nuneaton and Bedworth. Yeah, there's no money to build all this stuff. You look at these charts, and these beautiful charts of house building going higher and higher and higher, and it just can't happen. Yeah, we can build 400 a year in a good year. We have enough money and enough people and enough things for 400 a year to be buildable. When you start building 500 a year, the number of empty homes goes up. And when you build less than 500, numbers go down.
Councillor Condacor, I need to be fair to everybody. Are there any points of clarification? No. Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Lutz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. On Wednesday the 11th of July, I spoke at the full council meeting. I urged the council to back a motion put forward by the Conservatives to review the borough plan in an open manner, which would listen to the public as well as opposition views and review the numbers and need for housing. The motion was subject to two counter proposals, one of which wished to exclude the public and for the meeting to be held almost behind closed doors. And the other one was sort of what I call fag packet politics, basically. It was, according to Councillor Lloyd, I've come up with this on the back of a fag packet. I think really we do deserve slightly better than that. As none of the Labour councillors sat before me bothered to attend any of the inspectors' hearings last August, let me just bring you up to speed on the discussions that took place on the matter of consultation. The key points are that you did not fully consult with people in the borough. You used limited advertising and meetings taking place during the day when the majority of people were at work, and you decided to release all the details of the plan in the In Touch magazine the day after the consultation finished. And let's not even get started on the Oak FM radio station, which actually closed down, which you said you used, but closed down several months before the consultation started. Yet here we are again. You had the chance for an 8-week-long consultation, but instead you opted for 6 weeks. However, you've had the information for a good few weeks now and you've sat on it. So as a consequence, most of us will be away due to the summer holidays. So the reality is most of us will not have a full 6-week period. Other than the council website and examination library, how else do you intend to reach the public for consultation? Once again, it looks like you wish to exclude as many people as possible from this process. Why will you only consult the ever-dwindling number of people who keep putting forward representations? Everyone in this borough is a stakeholder and should be fully involved in the consultation process. The language which keeps cropping up in this paper before us is words such as urgency and expediency. This is not a race, and to do everything as fast as possible, just so you can hit some imagined deadline. If the council chooses to manage its own time poorly, then the people of the borough should not be penalised for it with a limited consultation period. I said it last year to this cabinet, stop giving us the minimum, we deserve better. If this process is to have meaning, then it needs to be done properly. A carpenter always measures twice and cuts once. I would urge you to do the same with a borough plan. Call it in now, review it properly, as was suggested. Finally, I noted with interest this council's corporate aims and priorities on page 5 of this document we have in front of us today. Aim 1, priority 3, looks at the improving health and reducing health inequalities. How does building more houses without the required hospitals, doctors, surgeries and dental service actually meet this need? While aim 3 is about providing a pleasant environment for those living, working and visiting the borough. With priority 1 being the creation of a greener and cleaner environment, and priority 2 including protection of the environment. Surely these are odds with developing greenbelt land, especially when other sites may be available within the borough.
Thank you, Lutz. Are there any points of clarification? Can I just say, Lutz, that actually I did attend a couple of these sessions.
The one I was speaking of, Madam Chair, was the one in I think it was the 30th of August. So I don't know if you were there for that one. I don't believe I saw you there.
I can't remember the dates I went,
Yeah.
but I attended a couple of sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lutz. Councillor Richard Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Well, here we are once again in an effort to drive through the borough plan at any cost. The controlling party doing the bare minimum to give the public a chance to voice their opinions on main modifications. Instead of taking the opportunity to have an 8-week consultation, we seem to be going for 6 weeks in the middle of a holiday period and only contacting residents who've already objected. I guess we've come to expect this approach, and it probably doesn't matter anyway, because history tells us you won't listen to the objections of the majority, who simply don't want this massive overdevelopment of our borough. At the recent elections, you were given a clear message from the electorate that they're angry and extremely unhappy about the borough plan and many other issues. At full council, Labour rejected the chance to have an open, transparent and public focused review panel. How can you expect the public to have any confidence in you delivering a meaningful consultation now? With regards to main modifications in my own ward of Bulkington, I note a couple of small but very extremely important changes. Both HSG 7 and 8 have a significant change hidden in just 2 words. They've changed from of circa to at least. This may not seem much, but it tells me that the nearly 700 houses the majority of Bulkington residents are extremely angry about is now the minimum we can expect in a village that's already threatened by a 30% increase in housing. If you'd listened to the first consultation, you would have realised this is not even close to an acceptable amount of development to these residents. With regards to HSG 7 main modification, the new clarity on access points will give some cheer to residents in Bramcote Close, which was never a realistic option. However, the many residents on the Lancing Road estate will be devastated that you consider this to be an acceptable access road. Anyone on that estate and in the wider village will tell you that it's just not an acceptable access and shouldn't even be considered as such. Once again, you're doing the minimum for the residents of this borough. These main modifications and the plan for a limited consultation that will exclude the majority of residents from having a say is not good enough. After the clear message sent in the recent election results, I would say the residents of this borough expected better than this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Are there any
No.
clarification? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Corinne Vernon.
Thank you very much. Mine's just a short statement on behalf of Bulkington Residents' Voice. Following on from the council meeting of the 11th of July, it was noted that during the debate on the motion tabled for the borough plan, both councillors Phillips and Lloyd were willing to enter into the debate, with Councillor Phillips entering a statement and Councillor Lloyd attempting to do so, which was rebuked, thus preventing those of us from BRV in the gallery hearing his full comments. From the outset, Bulkington Residents' Voice has always maintained a neutral stance when it comes to political parties. Members of all parties were invited to the 2 public meetings we've held in the village. However, it wasn't difficult to see our local councillor did not attend. Likewise, it wasn't difficult to see that Councillor Beaumont chose not to speak at the full cabinet on any matter. Therefore, we called upon him to speak through a formal question and a not so formal call out from us in the gallery, but to no avail. However, to date, we have done our utmost to follow procedure, remain dignified and non-political. The point right now is that we have 2 councillors who saw sense in taking the moment to discuss the plan, rather than instantly shooting down the opposition. Their sense, unfortunately, was lost on the night. BRV are therefore calling upon these councillors and all council colleagues involved in the plan to hit the pause button, to stop being so focused on achieving the timeline, to sit down as a team, working for the people of this borough, no one else, and look at the number of houses being built, to reassess the sites and be absolutely sure of which green belt will be lost. Don't just think about the here and now. You have to think of the future in what is already a densely populated area. Houses may be needed, but focus on how many, not just on the sites that the landowners want to sell, but what's right for the borough, what we are leaving for future generations when we're all pushing up daisies, assuming there's enough land left for us to push up daisies through. One of BRV's biggest grievances is Bulkington being added late to the plan. It's so obvious that this was done to accommodate Coventry's overspill. Bulkington were given a 2-hour slot one afternoon for consultation when we were all at work. How did you think we were going to respond to that? Coventry have ploughed on, quite literally, as anyone can see when going into the city, with high-rise blocks going up on every bit of available land. We sincerely hope the university never falls on hard times. The point being, Coventry have gone ahead knowing that this council have agreed to take the overspill, yet this borough plan hasn't been approved yet. What an assumption on their part. Bulkington is currently classed as a village, something held dear to villagers and our 2 public meetings sounded out. The sheer volume of proposed sites totally surrounding the village as it stands is overwhelming for our villagers to accept, which is why BRV are emphatically saying no to the borough plan, and why at this stage we're asking you to pause, reassess the numbers as per the latest government figures, and most importantly include the houses that have already been built. Thank you.
Councillor Damon.
Thank you. The people of Exhall, Ash Green and Kersley are really badly affected by these borough plan proposals. Councillor Bagwan-Pandare has spoken really well on the School Lane site, so I won't bother repeating anything that he mentioned about that. But all of these sites, the ones at Burbage's Lane, School Lane, Hospital Lane, they all essentially feed into two main arteries into Coventry. These roads are already over-congested. The School Lane Coventry Road junction is a nightmare throughout the day. It can take 20 minutes to travel from Bowling Green Lane to Coventry Road and actually get out of that junction at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's without anything extra being added. Wheelwright Lane is continually gridlocked its entire length from Ash Green School to the railway crossing at around about 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's before we factor in the industrial site at Bowling Green Lane, which will have a massive effect on that area. It's completely out of character with the area. It'll result in HGV lorries using a road infrastructure that's not designed to cope with the existing traffic levels, let alone anything else that's proposed. Essentially, the other thing is that there's been insufficient modelling on this as to what will happen if all of these things are given the go-ahead. When we questioned the people at the inspectorate meetings, we was admitted that they'd been considered in isolation, not what happens if they all go ahead. So the cumulative effect of this traffic could be catastrophic. I mean, that's why we've got a plan that's on out-of-date data. We need to pause, we need to review it now, we need to look at the current evidence, and we need to drop the housing numbers dramatically. And to do that, we need a proper, open and transparent consultation that's open to all residents in all affected areas. And that's because you've already heard the last consultation was a shambles, a sham as people called it. I had residents contacting me to tell me they'd only found out about the consultation through the In Touch magazine the day after it closed. I had residents contacting me to say they had no notice of development 100 yards from their houses. In fact, it was only because of the efforts of Craig Tracy, the MP, that many people in Bedworth got to find out about this at all and that they were going to be affected by it. So let's not have any messing around this time. Let's not go for a 6-week consultation. Let's not try and fit it into an existing predetermined timescale that you've got in mind. Let's do the job properly. Let's have a proper pause. Let's have a review. At the very least, let's have an 8-week consultation. I honestly don't believe that you want to shortchange the residents. You know, I think that really you need to do this 8-week consultation, as long and as wide as possible, and with the documents not buried deep in the council's website that requires you to be a planning specialist to understand or answer. You know, let's get simple, easy to access consultation for people to be able to get involved with. You know, this is a really important thing. Let's do it properly, please.
Thank you. Councillor Seb Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We go.
Thank you.
The most important fact of all, and everybody knows it, 15,000 houses will not be built between now and 2020. It's unrealistic to expect that. There's no demand for that many. But what you've done by having the borough plan with a target that high is you've put loads of green belts and green spaces in Nuneaton and Bedworth at risk unnecessarily, which could be developed because they're not ring fenced for not being developed. It's this plan is just about helping Coventry. It's not about helping Nuneaton and Bedworth. We've got 4,000 houses being poured into Bedworth from Coventry's overspill. Coventry isn't a suburb of Bedworth isn't a suburb of Coventry. Bedworth is its own town with its own unique history, community, and we're not going to be absorbed this way. The borough plan is in desperate need of reduced numbers. You can look at the housing data that has been put in the government white paper. We can use that to reduce the number down to 7,000, which is closer to what this borough actually needs. If we need this many houses in Bedworth, then why haven't Arbury Estates built the houses they've got permission for on Ashley Lane? They got permission 3 years ago, and nothing's happened since. If people really want to live in that part of the town, in that huge number, then why hasn't this happened already? The plan needs the numbers reducing down to 7,000, and I know you like to blame the government for everything. This is an actual government report that's put this forward. And speaking specifically about the woodlands, the inspector said it is his emphasis that Ridge and Furrow should not be disturbed in any way. And what have we done? You've put the road infrastructure in the main modification straight through the Ridge and Furrow. And the developers have already said publicly at a meeting, which I was there at, I don't think any of you were there, that they would not pay for this infrastructure because they couldn't afford it and they didn't see why they had to pay for that much. And Arbery Estates even said that they would go it alone if necessary. They're quite happy with just developing their part of the land. So surely this whole thing falls apart with this if you put forward this road infrastructure. It's very expensive, it's put forward at the last minute, and if it's so good, then why wasn't it in the original version of the plan? Because we have traffic problems in Bedworth, you have queues on the Newtown Road, it's quicker to walk from the Woodlands to Bedworth Town Centre than to drive there a lot of the time. This doesn't solve that problem because for every car you're taking onto the A444 from Heath Road, you're adding an extra car from the Woodlands estate, so it's having a neutral impact there and making things a lot worse for people who live on Woodlands Lane, a very narrow road. I went out there, measured it myself for the consultation, and we found that 2 cars can't pass.
Grant, can I thank you very much for your comments? Are there any points of clarification? Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what another shambles. You know, we know the public have lost trust. We've heard that again this evening. We've heard it from the public themselves as well as the politicians. And they lay the blame firmly at this council's door. The reality is it doesn't blame at this council's door, it blames this cabinet's door. For example, if we can't have the maps to HSG1 printed correctly and on time in the main document, having to arrive only a couple of days ago as a supplement, how can that be right and how can residents expect the consultation documents necessarily to be correct? We've got no open and public meetings planned for this next session. The last consultations, you've already heard from local residents themselves, they were unable to attend because they were during the day when people were working. Working people not able to attend and limits the public to those who can go. Personally, I'm very disappointed to see HSG1 targets increased by another 1,100 homes. Wellington St Nicholas have already to date borne the brunt of much of the inappropriate development across this borough, and we want now, apparently, we're going to be seeing more. Very clearly, though, this consultation is too narrow, it's too short. The council's own statement of community involvement states the consultation should be 8 weeks, yet we decide to do 6 in order to gerrymander into some pre-existing timetable that very easily can be changed. There is no reason why, if we allow enhanced engagement in the consultation, and if that means that the final draft of the borough plan is not ready to present until the next cabinet, call an extraordinary cabinet. If it's not ready to present to the December full council, convene an extraordinary meeting in January. Councillors will be very happy to attend, and I know that my party will be. What we need to therefore do is have a very clear public consultation. It needs to be absolutely open and it needs to be transparent, and it should be at least, and I think frankly longer than 8 weeks even myself, given the fact that it's going to be such a long-lasting thing that's based upon our borough. But we should at least be following our own statement of community involvement. Further, I think very clearly that this is timed in a most appalling time to be over the middle of a school summer holiday. Not only are people going to be away, but families are looking after children. Parents taking time off work to look after children are not going to have time to sit through reams and pages of documents to go through what might affect them. Grandparents might be looking after children to ensure that parents can continue to work. Really, what I think needs to be done is we need to ensure that this consultation continues well beyond into a time when children have gone back to school, to allow families to actually sit down and to have a proper look at this when they're not otherwise engaged. Frankly, I think that, and we've heard this evening, the idea of a consultation for 6 weeks, which virtually matches exactly the school summer holidays, will be viewed by residents as nothing more than a way for this council and this cabinet to avoid full public participation and public scrutiny in the proposals. Thank you.
Any points of clarification? Thank you very much. Michelle Condon.
Thank you. Well, some of the points have already been covered, and one of the things that hasn't been raised was that we actually had an In Touch magazine arrive on Monday, 2 days ago, and so there won't be another one for months. So we've missed that opportunity yet again, and 6 weeks is the minimum. So I really want to talk about the sustainability assessment, but unfortunately that didn't go online until yesterday, and I haven't really had time to plough through much of it. But there are a few bits where I have got to. And it's a load of rubbish, because it says air pollutant levels in the borough have steadily decreased, and it is anticipated that this trend will continue. Where have they got that from? Because actually one of the more recent planning applications showed that was not happening. We're in the middle of a heat wave, which is not affecting just this country. It is, a global problem. You've seen the things on the telly from Japan, Sweden, Greece, you name it. Everywhere is being affected and things. This claims that carbon emissions per capita is lower than regional or national averages. Well, that makes, okay, that's a statement and things. But on the air thing, it says the number of residents commuting over 30 kilometres in the borough has increased by a third. I don't know over what time period that is, it doesn't say. And, 49% of the borough's population travels to work by car for journeys under 2 kilometres and things. These are all things which not only affecting the air quality and things, but they're having a massive impact on climate change, and we are seeing the effects of that now. One of the things on this thing which only came out yesterday, and I've only really been given now, it is regarding HSG1, which is Weddington and St Nicholas area and things. This spine road, including a cycling route, as you know, I am a keen cyclist, do a lot of cycling. Have you seen the shape of this spine road? It's zigzag, it's got 90-degree bends and things. If that's a spine road that's supposed to be having the buses go on it, it also claims it's going to be a cycling route and things. It is going to be so dangerous. People aren't then going to cycle. We're into this whole thing, increased cars. It hasn't been thought through. It's just really disturbing that we're being launched into another consultation on very flawed things. You can't have a spine road. If our spine looked like that, we'd all be in serious trouble. It's got to be straight. All right, it's going to curve round, but it is just absolute lunacy. So I haven't had a chance to read through, and I'm sure there's 101 other things, but those are just some bits for starters.
Thank you. Councillor Golding. Thank you very much.
I'm probably one of the few people that's happy with what's come back in the inspector's report, because it looks like I was actually listened to, which makes a change, especially when you're talking about roads. But I'm going to focus on the consultation. The first consultation we had was ineffective. The second consultation is actually building on the first consultation, which means you're guaranteed from the starting blocks. You're starting on a downer. You're not starting from a place that's a good place to start, because you're only contacting people that were involved in the first consultation. And as we know, we've heard it time and time again, a lot of people didn't get involved, they didn't know about it. Things like the website, not easy to traverse. I mean, I work in technology, and some of the things that I had to, you go 16 layers deep to try and find a document. It's just ludicrous to try and do that, and then try to find the relevant information that you need. It's not concise and it's not clear. The council, again, I won't reiterate what's already been said, but this statement of community involvement says that best practice is 8 weeks. Looking at the rota for next year's meetings, we've got a cabinet meeting January the 2nd, and then a cabinet meeting January the 23rd, you say that we've got to get this done because of the risk of planning by appeal, however it says that it is regarded as low. Seriously, what's another month? In the grand scheme of things, what is another month on this? Why not have an extraordinary council meeting in January, squeeze one in, make everybody happy? It gives, you should always have as well, I mean, it notes about the documentation for feedback. You should actually have, but it's best practice to have a live document as you're going through, so you pick up your consultation responses as you go in and you keep the document live. You shouldn't wait till the final bell before you start writing your document. So the end product of a consultation report should actually have already been started at the beginning of the consultation. So it shouldn't take a massive amount of time if you add on an extra few weeks and then do an extraordinary council in January. But what I would like to draw people's attention to is the consultation principles that are put out by the government. I know everyone knocks the government and whatever. Consultation principles for 2018. Consultation should be clear and concise. Use plain English and avoid acronyms. Be clear. Make them easy to understand and answer. Avoid lengthy documents where possible. Consultation should have a purpose. Consultation should be informative. Consultations are only part of a process of engagement. Consultation should last for a proportionate amount of time. Judge the length of the consultation. Well, I mean, I could go on, but the document's out there. The principles should be adhered to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holden. Are there any points to comment?
No.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Councillor Christmas.
Thank you, Chair. In reading this report, I have an unfortunate sense of déjà vu. We have had consultation during holiday periods. Check. Lack of information given to residents. Check. Short periods of time to respond. Check. And all of that has meant that it isn't us who suffer, it's the residents. If we are to have any confidence in this document, then the consultation is key. And we are having no public consultation events, no opportunity for residents to speak to officers of this council. And I think that's vitally important. There are changes within this document which could have a major impact on the areas which are being developed. If I pick my own ward, for example, it says upgrades to Lutterworth Road. What does that mean? Who's going to deliver it? When's it going to be delivered? How is it going to be delivered? What's going to be delivered? Who's going to fund it? Those are legitimate questions that residents quite rightly expect answers from officers. Been put in here at the suggestion of the inspector. I was there at the inspection when this happened, but no one said what was going to happen to make that work, and residents need those answers. As others have said, if we need to, call more meetings. It says in this report that we need to mark it not for call-in and only have 6 weeks because we won't reach the deadline for the 31st of October cabinet meeting. Well, I'm sorry, that's not a good enough reason. 15,000 people voted for Conservative candidates at this election. They expect us to do a job properly, not just to meet a deadline. The areas which are being affected most recently are having the least opportunity to have a say in how their communities are going to be shaped for the future. Face-to-face is vitally important. If we need to fund additional consultation events, I have a suggestion for you. Scrap the In Touch. We've all seen how much use that is. You publish it the day after the consultation event happens, and in this instance, it's not even being put in there at all. It isn't doing the job it is designed for on communicating key issues to residents on matters of importance. And one thing I am extremely concerned about, Chair, and I hope that in your new spirit of cooperation, which seems to have happened since the departure of the old leader, is a lack of openness. I have already communicated with officers asking whether they would be willing to attend a public meeting with residents to go through what some of these changes mean. And the answer I've had is no, there's no point. That is not good enough for residents. Residents deserve to have the opportunity to speak face to face like we are doing now and say, I have concerns about policy HSG4 or HSG9 or HSG8 and explain it to me. Not good enough, Chair.
Your comments, Councillor Wilson. Are there any points of clarification?
Can you just verify the officer said
Excuse me, I'm trying to listen.
no need, no point?
I can confirm. I'll even show you the email if you wish.
Yeah, I think it was the fact also that residents are dealing with the inspector because the plan is that far down the line. But I'll come to that later. So that's why the inspector said no public meetings. The inspector said no public meetings.
With respect, Chair, on that point, the inspector might have said that. However, I believe we as an organisation should hold ourselves to the highest possible standard and not the minimum, barest legal minimum standard. That is what residents pay their taxes for, and that's what they should get.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson.
No.
Thank you, Chair. So, I'm the last speaker on this particular item tonight, I believe. I want to talk about the Borough Plan consultation generally, and also HSG 1 specifically, page 29 to 30, MM32 to 44 specifically. We've heard a lot tonight that's been said before about shortcomings in the consultations, about lack of transparency, about it being very difficult to find documentation, and when it is, it's out of date. It's as if there's been predetermination of this is what the council leading group have decided, and whatever objections are raised, they're going to plough on regardless. Well, whatever criticisms have been levied against the controlling group in the past, however the consultations have been conducted or not conducted, however we've got to this point, it doesn't mean it has to end as it started and was in the middle. There is a final chance to pause, to do a review, to look at the numbers, because right now, from everything we've heard, there's no possible way, as we all know, that that number of houses, 15,000, will be built. It just won't happen. So what we're doing is making available a huge amount of land and areas in Greenbelt and all sorts of other unsuitable places to become a developer's charter, so that they can pick and choose where they would most like to build, rather than where we, as a borough and our residents, most need them to build and deliver housing, and the kind of housing and the infrastructure that goes with it. You know, there has been very little infrastructure delivery. You know, if I speak specifically about HSG1 now, you know, for everyone that lives in St Nicholas and Weddington and the adjoining areas, wow, I mean, by any objective measurement, that has been significant overdevelopment. The approval of all of those developments without any infrastructure being delivered whatsoever. I mean, even the inspector saying you're going to have to put some kind of spine road in just to cope with what you've already approved. Much less the vast areas, and in the small print right down in there, we see that it goes from 3,331 houses in the area to 4,419 now, another 1,088 houses in an area already overdeveloped and under-resourced in terms of infrastructure delivery. I mean, that's just, you know, when we don't need a fraction of the overall total that's being put forward, to insist on another 1,100 in HSG1 is just, it beggars belief. So as I say, you know, if you feel that you cannot stop it now, you cannot pause and have that review. If you must press ahead, let the consultation at least be meaningful, this last one. You know, there's free channels out there of social media that could be used, that won't cost the council a fortune, that will engage more widely. And then please act on what comes back. When the residents of HSG1 make a good point to not having another urban houses,
to be fair to
believe them.
everybody in the room, I am going to ask you to. Thank you. Any points of clarification? I could call a name out who wasn't with us previously, Carl Walker. Has Mr. Walker arrived? Okay, I thought I'd give the opportunity if he had arrived during the meeting. Okay, Councillor Phillips.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. As ever, in depth emotional, factual statements from the public and the people that are obviously very, very interested in the plan. The main modification stage is part of the examination phase of the Borough local plan, which began when the plan was submitted during the plan to the planning inspector in June 2017. The main modifications are those that the inspector has recommended to ensure the plan is found sound. Those that the inspector is recommending. Without them, the plan could not move forward to adoption. The modifications do not fundamentally change the plan or its overall objectives, which is disheartening in some respects, and reflect the issues raised at the hearings. They do not include the insertion of 2 new policies. They do include the insertion of 2 new policies to cover monitoring of housing delivery and to reflect government guidance on the reviewing of the plan. Now, the reviewing of the plan, we've got to get something adopted before we review it. You know, and it's like I said at council, and Ian tried to say at council, when it's adopted, we'll work and we'll look at the review and how we're going to do it. But we can't review something if it isn't adopted. We also can't, in a way, I believe, stop the plan at the present moment in time completely, because the government will come in and do it for us.
Let them do it then.
Yeah.
Probably do their job.
Can I ask, I know it's a very emotive subject and we really do value listening to people's comments, but we do need to be able to hear the Cabinet members speaking.
As with all the other stages of the local plan, a sustainability appraisal of the plan needs to be completed, and I'm sorry we didn't get it earlier to Cabinet. There was nothing we could possibly do about that because it's done by independently. This is an independent document produced by outside consultants and will also be the subject of the consultation. As this reflects the main modifications, this document could not be drafted until the draft main modifications were completed. The document also needs to be seen by the inspector for him to assess whether or not it contains all the information he would expect to see. If the inspector recommends any changes to the document, then these are likely to be minor in nature and will be completed prior to the consultation period in conjunction with the Cabinet member. So they have. The local plan regulations set out how the consultation on the main modifications should take place. Consultation is only on the main modifications and includes placing the documentation on the council's website and writing to all those who have made comments. This is the same format used by other authorities, but from what I hear tonight, we will investigate, or we will discuss and investigate all options of involvement from the point of view of social media or putting it on other sites, etc., and getting the word out there that this document is there, these modifications are here to be looked at. At the beginning of the consultation period, all those people who are on the consultation database, which includes everyone who has already made comments, objections, as well as all the statutory and non-statutory consultees, will be sent a letter or email informing them of the process, the timescales and where to access all the documents. They will also be informed as to how to make comments on the main modifications and then what happens to them. Anybody at all in the borough can make comments on the main modifications. It doesn't have to be a political group, it could be anybody. You know, it could be any activist group can make comments on the modifications. The more comments are there, the better. I totally agree. However, only comments on the main modifications can be taken into account at this stage of the examination process. The examination guidance made it clear that no further representation should be made at this stage of the examination other than those in connection with the main modifications. The responses received will be forwarded to the planning inspector at the end of the consultation period. After that, he should be in a position to publish his final report, which will then be considered by Cabinet and Council. Now, since publishing the Cabinet report, it's been necessary to amend one of the concept plans for HSG1 to reflect planning permission given since the hearings. The amended concept plan, which Michelle talked about with the wonky spine, has been provided to Cabinet and will replace the previous version for consultation. In view of how critical the timing is, and also for making the final version of the sustainability appraisal available for consultation and to minimise the risk of a delayed start to consultation, recommendation 3 changes to that delegated authority be given to the Director, Planning and Public Prosecution Protections. We should take that on as well. And the Head of Planning, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Planning, and develop to make any minor changes to the sustainability assessment prior to the period of public consultation, if recommended to do so by the Inspector. So, this is what I'm going to recommend, much to people's distaste in so many ways, that we do go to consultation on the draft modifications, that we do try and engage and get out there how people can engage in the consultation. We need to monitor that very, very quickly, and also if my fellow Cabinet members agree, we do extend it to 8 weeks, which is what our normal community consultation will be. Having said all that, you know, we'll do the 8 weeks. Obviously, things will be watched, you know, what's out there, how's it being done, etc., but we will endeavour to do everything we possibly can so people can engage. And as for reviewing the plan, like I said earlier, it will need reviewing. It will need reviewing, but you can't review something until it's adopted and found to be sound. Okay, so that's it.
Can I ask a question, please, Chair?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just turn to our planning officers? Dale, is there anything you need to say at this stage?
I think just to re-emphasise that the comments do go back to the inspector to consider, and the comments focused on the changes in that table at the back, so where something's been added or something's been taken out, is to focus on those key parts in terms of people's responses to the consultation. But yeah, I think Neil's covered most of it there. Thank you.
Anything here you need to say?
Perhaps just on the subject of clarity, clearly that table, which is the key item for consultation, is a long document, and the presentation isn't very clear. However, the guidance does actually specify exactly how we should present that information with all the strike-throughs and the underlines and so forth. So we really have no option to try and draft it in a more user-friendly way. We're obliged to present it in that format.
Thank you. So, Neil, can I come back to you? You are moving those
I'm moving the recommendations, yes.
with the amendments you made.
With the amendments shown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, just on that last comment here, you say we have to produce it in that format and in that way. Is that the inspector that's telling us we have to do that, or who is it?
It's the national guidance that specifies that we need to do it that way for clarity. Obviously it's not in plain English, but it is very clear what's been taken out and what's been added in.
Okay. And the second question really is this, well, there's an 8 weeks consultation being proposed. We've heard a lot about it being over the school holiday time. Yeah, I understand people are away, but I would have thought actually over the school holiday time, for those people that have got children and are normally working or off work, maybe it is a good time to do it, especially with the 2 weeks extra time. That, you know, there's never a good time to do any consultation. There's always going to be objections, whether you are working or whether you're not. But I think, personally, over that 6 week period, if we stretched it to 8 weeks, does the 8 weeks take over and above? Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Lloyd, I think a valid point, if you can just speak up slightly. The lady.
There's a lot of noise going on
Yeah.
just down this corner here, Chair.
As I was saying, if we stretched it over the 6 weeks to the 8 weeks, would that cover both the school holiday and other times? Does it take it outside of the school holidays?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
8 weeks
And
will.
8 weeks is regarded as good practice. for that very reason, that it just allowed people opportunity to have fairly significant personal commitments and still time to respond.
So people like myself that are off work for a period of time over that will have the option, obviously if not on holiday, to go and to be consulted and actually reply, and people that are at work will get the opportunity to reply through that consultation. That's what we're saying over that period of time.
Well, they'll have a third more time in which to reply if it's extended from 6 weeks to 8 weeks.
And final question, then I'll leave it on. I'll leave it alone. Is we've heard a lot on highway matters tonight. Who's responsible for the highway infrastructure within the plan?
Well, the Highways Authority is responsible for modelling highway infrastructure and advising us. But the council obviously also has an obligation to ensure that there's adequate highway infrastructure and improvements made in order to support whatever developments are in the borough plan. And the basis of that is set out in the infrastructure delivery plan. So in a lot of cases where the current infrastructure couldn't support the amount of additional houses, there are plans to improve that current infrastructure to match the additional number of houses.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask, the government inspector has obviously looked at things like overall numbers. Many people today have actually drawn our attention to whether or not the overall numbers that are in our plan are actually ones that the government inspector thinks are reasonable. Can I ask, is that the case, or is the government inspector saying we should build less?
The government inspector has considered all aspects of the draft plan as it stands, including numbers, and has concluded that the numbers are appropriate. He's not suggesting any increase or reduction in the numbers or in the land allocations. The only changes he's suggested are the main modifications, which are the subject of this report and will be the subject of this consultation. And therefore the inference of that is, because he has said he only wants to hear comments about the main modifications, since the main modifications don't change housing numbers, in effect he has said he doesn't need to hear any comments about housing numbers or land allocations because he has already fully considered those. So the only things he wants to consider is comments on the main modifications, and in fact the national guidelines stipulate the inspector is not allowed to consider anything other than comments on the main modifications.
And can I just ask, the guidelines we are adhering to, are those set by government?
Yes, they're national guidelines.
I just wanted to be clear on that. I actually want to support Councillor Phillips in his recommendation of extending the time frame. I think that would be really helpful to give an extra 2 weeks to assist the time that people have to input into this process. Any other cabinet member? It has been moved by Councillor Phillips with the 2 alterations, the one at paragraph B, that we actually add the name of the director into that, and that the consultation period would be that of 8 weeks rather than 6 weeks. Is that seconded?
I'll second.
Right, okay.
Can I just ask him to make sure it's clear? Is this consultation just people who've responded that
Can I?
extended to
We
8
weekend
weeks?
normally
I know, but
at this
you want
stage.
to go back and tell the public, don't
Mr.
you?
James,
Or is it to everybody?
I've heard your question. I understood, and we have officers here who will correct me, but anyone can comment on the main modifications. Okay? I think on that occasion that was a good question. We're quite happy. We want to listen to members of the public. There will be plenty of opportunity if this is approved tonight during the 8-week consultation period that has been proposed and seconded, that people can make their comments on these main modifications. Can I take a vote on that then? It has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That is then passed. If there are any questions that members of the public have, you can take those up with officers outside of this room. I'm sure Dale, you hang around and assist people for a few minutes after this meeting. Thank you very much. I'm then moving to item 7. Can I also thank everybody who has contributed to that item and indeed sent emails to us.
and me as well.
Chair, can I just, who are the people we are allowed to speak to?
Mr. Pepper.
You and Mr. Okay, I'll follow you out.
Right then, I am going to continue now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to continue. We have item 7, the retendering of grounds maintenance contract and arrangements in regard to that. Councillor Lord.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Basically, this is a papers in front of us today to push forward the proposed timetable, emphasise on timetable, for going forward to tendering with the grounds maintenance contract. So these currently two grounds maintenance contracts that we want to bring into one.
Can I just...
It's not really honest.
Can I thank you, Michelle?
Thank you very much. Yeah, one.
I'm aware we've got windows open and doors open to try and let air through. I'm going to ask Councillor Lloyd if you can start again so we can all hear what he says.
Basically, as I was saying, this paper today is about recommending that we move forward the actual timetable for going forward to for the contract, re-let the contract for grounds maintenance. Currently, there's two grounds maintenance contracts. We're going to bring those into one tendering process, one single contract. There's also the second contract, which basically the trees and hedgerows, etc. We're suggesting that's done as a separate contract, so we can allow smaller companies within the borough to tender for those contracts rather than Glendale or whoever is the one that comes forward. That any other ad hoc maintenance work that we call for anywhere in the borough can be tendered for by smaller organisations within the borough. And obviously on page 5 we have the timetable for the tendering process. I emphasise again that this is solely the tendering process and the tendering timetable. It is not the specification we're talking about. I can assure members the specification, which is virtually done now, will come to all members in a briefing once it's done. As we all know, the actual specification has been to the scrutiny committee, has been through the scrutiny work, and recommendations did come through to Cabinet from scrutiny, what should and what should not be included in that specification, and that specification will come back to an all members briefing, all parties. So what we're talking about today is just moving forward on the timetable for the tendering, not specific parts of the actual tender at a later date. So can I move, Chair, the recommendations sorry, I lost it, in the recommendations on page 55.
Thank you. I'll come to whether there's a second draft of public speaking. Councillor Pond.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think most councillors would be glad that we're ending this contract with Glendale. I've been a councillor for 6 years, just over, and certain times a year, Glendale is half your casework. There's a lot of things wrong, and a lot of things, we paid Glendale money, they have a specification. Quite often they're doing what they're specified to do because the specification wasn't well thought out, and weather changes, all sorts of circumstances. So I hope we're learning the lessons, and I'm really pleased with the third thing that Councillor Lloyd mentioned, is actually small contractors doing small jobs. because we have things like on my estate in Nicholas Park, there's a flood relief. It needs a massive clear out once or twice a year, and that costs the council about £1,000. And it's an ideal sort of job where some local firm, gardening firm or small job firm could do that, could do it better, and it wouldn't be just another part of this vast contract. So that would be really good to actually get some of these small little jobs done by local firms. The specification is really key, and in the past the specification has been incredibly secret, and I would like a totally open process. The only thing we cannot do open, obviously, is the bidding process. So the commercial agreement of they're paying £42 per man hour, we understand that there's bits that are commercial with financial figures, but the actual specification of what gets cut, when it gets cut, and the maps and the, I hope we can go to having a totally open system so that any member of the public, the housing officers, can look at their plan. Here's Cleaver Gardens, the specification says these bits are cut, these bits are left to be wild, and by doing as much open as possible, we actually reduce the amount of work we have, because actually something can be self-policed, because people can know what should and shouldn't be done. So I am optimistic that we're having a change, pleased with the small contracts for little jobs, and really want to change the secrecy culture. When I started, the housing officers weren't allowed to know what was in the contract to be cut at Cleaver Gardens. They had to ask the parks people, and it was like Chinese whispers. I hope we have a system which is totally open, and things, I don't really want to go with Glendale, but whoever has it, this live interactive, you look on your phone, you can see, I want to get the grass cut, actually it's going to be cut on Thursday anyway, so I don't need to raise a complaint. There's lots of opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any points of clarification? Thank you, Councillor Chronicle. Councillor David Brown.
Thank you. Grounds maintenance, grass cutting, it's one of the few visible things we do as a council, and it's one of the services that people actually notice. And they certainly notice if it's not done correctly. And boy oh boy, have they been getting in touch this summer to let us know it's not getting done correctly. So people pay council tax, they expect a standard from the council. And when it's not right, they complain. Not that we know particularly well, because we're not recording the complaints in a systematic and accurate way. If I complain directly to an officer, it doesn't get recorded as a complaint. Where's the sense in that? It is a complaint, and most people do complain. I welcome the thing about having smaller companies involved, and I welcome the commitment to letting councillors know the standards at some point in the future. But I think that the specifications should be clear from the outset. The specifications we're asking people to bid for shouldn't be a matter of secrecy. We should be able to see those. The public should be able to see those. They should be able to know what the council is going to sign up to on their behalf for their money, and have an input into it, quite frankly. And similarly, once this thing goes through, we need some sort of interactive map system where people can just click on an area and see what the specification is for that area, see when things are likely to be cut. One of the reasons they get in touch with us is because something hasn't happened. We then report it, and it gets cut a day or two later because it was going to get cut anyway. But the public cannot see that. And it's so easy to do. If you can get an app now for your phone that will guide you to a car park, guide you to the space in real time, an app that will tell you where air pollution is and change your sat-nav, I'm sure it's not beyond the wit of this council to give us a map that you can click on and let us know what the grounds maintenance specification is for an area. I welcome the idea that we're going to try and be more open. Please let us do it. Please let us have the specifications now, please. And also, let's have some more requiring standards for what constitutes a failure. In my job, if I have a 1% error rate, that is a failure overall on your performance for the year. Glendale can get away with 3 out of 4 being right and 1 out of 4 being wrong and still be acceptable. That's just not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Michelle Condon.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick out a few bits, because this is really the first time as a member of the public that I've actually sort of been able to see anything really regarding this retendering process. on page 55, number 5, that concerns me, that delegated authority be given to the director to make any necessary amendments, blah 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 thing. Surely that sort of goes against, if it's already gone through scrutiny and things, surely if then changes are required, they should also go back to scrutiny. That's certainly how I would read it. On page 56, on the financial implications, now I know it's a juggling act, so how much it costs to what can be actually done. But I'm very concerned with the last sentences, whilst also maintaining the existing standards. Well, I think talk to most people in town, in either of the towns, and they actually want it improved above the existing standards. I know it's not easy because of the money situation and things, but that just actually phrasing it like that does send slight alarm bells to me. Also on page 56, health inequalities implications. Now, there are massive health implications. You can't see round corners, all the overgrowth thing. People are less likely to walk, less likely to get out about. If people are housebound and all they can see is mess and things, that's not good for mental health and things. So, all right, it might not be inequalities in the same way as you apply, but there are massive health implications for this. And by getting what seems like a simple thing right, that will actually have massive benefits. It's already been covered. We really need transparency for residents to know what's included. It's great if it's all one contract, because at the moment there seems to be differences between what's specified for east to west, Nuneaton to Bedworth and things, and it shouldn't be. It should be the same for the whole borough. And the final thing I just wanted to raise on page 60, I think it's 4.2b. I'm concerned because it says that the specification becomes frequency based as opposed to a mixed approach of frequency and performance. Now, with the weather we get in this country, you can't do it on frequency, because my lawn at home things, at the moment, haven't had to cut it for weeks on end and things. I mean, it's just a brown sort of patch, things. Yeah, when we were having all that massive rain, I think was it March, April, I lose track, things, it was growing like there was no tomorrow, and I could virtually, need to be cutting it every week. So, the fact that, it's only going to be cut, every third week and things, that's one of the problems that seems to have, arisen to a lot of the complaints and things, because people don't like to see it massively up.
Thank you very much.
It gets very messy when it is then done.
Thank you for your comments. Any points of clarification? Thank you very much. Back to you then, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what the last speaker's just said, I may agree with. But this is not the meeting for it. That meeting's tomorrow night. Because obviously it's going to scrutiny. As I said in the beginning, this is solely about the tendering process and the timetable for tendering. And that's what I'm moving today on. So I'll move the recommendations on page 50.
Is that second? All those in favour? That's agreed. Now moving on to our next item, item 8, private sector housing, licensing policy and standards for houses in multiple occupation. Councillor Long.
Nearly there. Chair, this is just a simple, or maybe not so simple, update on what we've got already, and it's been put in place really through government guidelines, and just our policies needed to change in line with that, and this is what this document's about, and it's a simple update of where we are and where we are. I'd like to make the recommendation.
I have no public speakers on this item indicated. Is that seconded?
I'd like to welcome the report as well, because we have a lot of houses and multiple occupations. So everything that deploys or gives councils more power to ensure standards improve, that would be a good thing.
Has Councillor Longden's recommendation been seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, are we all happy with that report?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Moving on to the next item, Councillor Longden, private sector housing regulation charging structure.
Yeah, this is another really update on where we're at. The report introduces charging structures for private sector housing enforcement from new legislation that's gone through government, and it's just seeking the delegated authority to the director.
I've got one public speaker, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Well, after a very difficult evening for you all, you'll be pleased to hear I'm very much in support of this. This government legislation introduced in the 2016 Housing and Planning Act has given us a great opportunity to support and protect the many vulnerable residents living in private rented accommodation. These residents are often at the mercy of road landlords who are quick to collect rent but neglect their duty to provide living conditions to an acceptable standard. These new powers enable us to support residents by applying civil penalties with wide range of premiums that will hit road landlords with substantial financial penalties up to £30,000. This will act as a massive deterrent and help improve living conditions for many vulnerable tenants, and will be seen as a positive sign by the many law-abiding landlords who provide a quality service to their tenants. I'm particularly pleased to see provision in there for minimum energy efficiency standards to help combat fuel poverty, as well as the extension of cover for rent repayment orders. I'd just like to congratulate the officers and the portfolio holder for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Councillor, any clarification? Thank you for your comments.
Well, I'm not going to take praise where it's not due, Chair, but the issue came from the officers. So, and I agree with that, and I actually agree with what the Speaker said. I'm going to have to get reprogrammed now, I think. It's a very good report, and it does do exactly what Richard was saying, and it does help out those vulnerable people who have got nowhere to go, really. That's going to be the key, is identifying where these people are, and then, as soon as we can, hit them with whatever we need to hit them with. And that will be done. I have got that assurance from officers, and it was one of my primary concerns that we need some mechanism to actually give people confidence to actually complain about their landlord. And that's going to be very difficult for some people because they're frightened, they'll get kicked out and they'll be shoved all over the place. There are safeguards in here for that, so it's a very, very good system. And I would move the recommendation as printed on page 137.
Thank you.
Seconded, yes, definitely.
Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
That's approved unanimously then. Thank you. Moving then to our next item, which is item 10, the annual Treasury Management Report. The CIPFA Code on Treasury Management requires that the Council receives regular reports, including an outturn report. This report details the Treasury Management activity for 2017-18 financial year for this authority and includes the prudential and Treasury indicators which require presenting to full Council for approval. The tables within section 6 of the report summarise the Council's closing net debt position and the loans held for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account as of the end of March 2018. More detailed information on borrowing and investment activity and performance is reported in section 9 through to section 11. Appendix 1 shows the actual prudential indicators for 17-18 compared to the original estimates. All of the indications are within the expected range and no prudential limits were breached. The recommendations are shown in section 3 of the report, and Cabinet are requested to recommend these to Council for approval as required by CIPFA regulations. I have two speakers on this. Councillor Councillor Condacall, you're on my sheet first.
Thank you very much, Chair. when I asked to speak, actually, I was then allowed yesterday to speak at the Audit and Standards Committee by the acting chair yesterday, which gave me some confidence talking to officers about where we're going, because obviously we've got a great amount of uncertainty in things like Treasury with potential Brexit, exchange rates, there's so much uncertainty ahead. So I did actually just want to speak to actually say how confident I am with where we are at the moment and how we're taking a very prudent view of where we're going. But also, we have a lot of debt that comes up at certain dates. In a couple of years' time, we have several years in a row where we start paying back large amounts of our debt, and we also have large amounts of borrowing. So I'm sure the Children's Services will talk about mortgage schemes and things. And I just want to say we need to be very careful, and I think the Council is currently being very careful because of the uncertainty and the problem with taking on more debt to do anything at the moment is we're just putting more risk on the taxpayer. So.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any points of clarification? Thank you very much, Councillor Pontycall. Councillor Wilson. I was getting mixed up, I'm afraid, with the two first names that begin with K. Councillor Wilson, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think by and large that's about the only similarity there is between myself and Councillor Pontycall. We do sometimes overlap on certain areas of policy, and I do think it's slightly presumptuous of him to try and speak for me in his 3 minutes. Actually, what I was going to say is that by and large I actually support most of what is going on in this report. Whilst there are the political debates which we have about what money is spent on, how we reach a balanced budget, etc., those are separate to how the money is actually spent and the financial procedures, etc. And I do have a strong confidence in Simone and her team, having worked quite closely with them over the years on shadow budgets where we've had our fair share of discussions over how these things go. But I've always had confidence that at the end of the day, the money that is going into these reports and the content of the reports is accurate. Save for one little thing I've noticed on page 156, and I'm hoping that perhaps either yourself, Chair, or someone might be able to clarify something, because in the table at 6.1, where you've got the row where it says total investments all internally managed, for the 31st of March 2017, the rate of return says 0.69. There is no rate of return in the 31st of March 2018 column. Now, I don't know whether that's because it should be 0, or if it is, it should really say 0 for clarity's sake, or whether something is missing from the report. Simone might be able to give something when she mops up from whatever is said, or yourself, Chair. But for clarity's sake, I think it's important that that report is clarified before it goes to Cabinet, because I don't think there's any major issues over the report, but I just think for accuracy's sake, we need to make sure that we're giving a true reflection as to the position of the finances in the Borough. That's all I had to say, really, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further clarification? Can I thank you for your comments? Can I jump straight over actually to Simone in regard to the point that Councillor Wilson made?
Yeah, there should be a comparable rate in there. So I thought it was actually included elsewhere in the report. I can't see it at first glance. There's the average rate of return there from the report. But we'll get that updated in time for council.
Excellent. I'm going to take that on board. And I'd just like to say I think the finance team generally has been working under a great deal of extra pressure this year because so many reports have had to be brought to a much earlier stage in the financial year. They've worked incredibly hard to meet those deadlines, and I think we would all wish to place on record our thanks to them, and I'm pleased that it appears that there is cross-party consensus in having confidence in our finance team. So I hope that as a Section 151 officer, Simone, we can actually give our thanks to the team for their hard work.
Just Councillor Chair, just to come back on that quickly, 10.4 on page 159 just has the average rate of return for the year of 0.62%. That may be slightly different in case 1.6.2, but it won't be too different. But I will get that clarified. But I believe it will be very similar to the fixed rate of 10.4, which is 0.62 for last year.
But we will certainly make sure that the report going to Council in due course has a figure in it. I do therefore move the recommendations that are printed there. Are we all happy to adopt them?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you, that's approved. We then come to item 11. which is a recommendation to an overview of scrutiny panels. Do we have anyone here to present this recommendation from external overview and scrutiny?
I think the chair had her own arrangement.
Okay. I think we can all clearly see that this recommendation actually is talking about having a training event for elected members. I'd like to move from the chair that training is never wasted, and I think it would be a good idea to arrange such an event, and I'm sure through the appropriate officers we can make sure that happens.
After the holidays.
I would imagine that people would prefer it would be after the school holidays, yes. Are we all happy with that?
Yes,
Chair, there was a speaker.
Oh, apologies. I've missed you. Councillor Condicall, please accept my apologies. I did not realise there was a speaker, and it's clearly printed on my page, so apologies for that.
Thank you very much. I'm not off topic. When I was a child, I went to school in Nuneaton and we went swimming at the Pingles, and they tried to teach people to swim. And the people who got the most attention from the swimming instructors were the ones who could already swim. So I learnt swimming late because most of the attention that the swimming instructors most liked teaching the people who could already swim, pyjamas on, get bricks from the top, it's the bottom of the pool, all this stuff. And I really feel that's what the LEP and the Growth Hub are doing. They're actually helping most the people who need the least help, which is why on the external scrutiny I really want to get more involved in the Growth Hub, because I believe it's a massive opportunity to actually bring businesses up in Nuneaton and Bedworth and get more going on. But we need to know more about it. We need more councillors involved and screaming that the Growth Hub isn't providing enough for us. And at the external scrutiny, when the LEP Growth Hub came, I kept saying, well, how are we doing compared to Stratford? We get our tables of how we're doing and say, oh, we're not comparable. We're not telling you how others are doing. And they'll always do better, but the gap is too big. And when the Growth Hub loses a member of staff, the new member of staff, the rookie, always seems to start in the Nuneaton. And we've had a very poor run, and it's getting better. I've moaned for 4 years about the Growth Hub, and we're getting more from the Growth Hub. Things are getting better. The more I moan, people do listen to me sometimes. But I do think the Growth Hub is really important to us, and it's really important to get more small businesses growing into medium-sized businesses, and more medium-sized businesses actually having that bit extra growth. And it's marvellous going to that business event where at the Ambleside and see a couple of businesses that are doing quite well, but there's only a couple. You go to Stratfords and Warwicks and it's teeming with businesses. And so we always talk housing. We actually should always be talking work, because if we've got the work, then people can buy houses. And we need the jobs and we need the opportunities, because young people, in my party, we lose all our young people. They go to university and they go and live somewhere else. If we can do more with the Growth Hub, get more businesses growing, apprentices, new graduates in, we need to be growing Nuneaton. And I think the Growth Hub is where the game is at the moment. And we haven't had our fair share. So I'm really pleased that we'll get the Growth Hub in. And I don't always want to be negative, but I'm always negative to make a positive happen. We need to get a step change. In Leamington Spa, they've got the games hub. All the games companies are there. They're actually having to put more electric supplies into Leamington Spa because there's so many people with servers developing computer games. We need something growing here. Thank you.
Any points of clarification?
Just wondered
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Just wondered how being negative gets so positive. I can't quite understand that.
I highlight problems, and I hope that people do something about it with me nagging enough. I've nagged for years about the lack of sports events coming into Nuneaton. The cycling race always seemed to start somewhere else, and this year we've got the cycling race starting in Nuneaton. I don't know if it's me, but...
That's fine. I understand that. I thought you were using a bit of psychology on me. So.
I wouldn't try.
Thank you for your comments. Right. And apologies, Councillor Condicall, because I just didn't look at the...
Okay, well, watch it.
The recommendation is printed there. I've seen some of the great work the Growth Hub is doing, actually, and along with Councillor Lloyd, we did attend the business event that was recently held. We have an awful lot to be proud of in Nuneaton and Bedworth. There are lots of thriving companies, and some of those have been assisted by the Growth Hub, but I think it's something, information we should be sharing and giving an opportunity for all members to really fully understand what's going on. So we will ask officers in due course to arrange an event. I would suggest after the beginning of September, because obviously it's availability of everyone with annual leave, etc. Are we all happy to agree that recommendation?
Good, yes.
Fantastic. That brings us on to item 12. And I'm just checking I haven't got any speakers on item 12. I haven't, but there is no any other business to my knowledge. Can I thank you for your attendance tonight? Safe journey home.